Okay, lots happened in the project since the last video. Basically, I lost a memory card to my camera. Till I find it, I just have to update you. Last thing I showed you was the shifter linkage. Kind of hard to see down there now. It comes up to this shifter right here. Got threaded rod running back to that. Reverse, neutral, forward. Here's my instrument panel, this starter, battery's dead right now, charge it up, choke, kill switch. This was going to be for lights right here, cheap switch, broke as soon as I put it in there. Tachometer up here, steering wheel off my old car. The seat, I just bent this tubing. It was actually identical to this right here. I just flared it out a little bit. All of this right here, this was actually the uprights from a float, like you'd see them having a grocery zone that they bring out onto the floor at a grocery store. I got a bunch of them from the last place I worked at. Don't know how well you can see the rear end there. Standard rear end out of most lawnmowers. The way I've got this configured, 40 series torque converter there, going back to a jack shaft, chain running from there over to the gearbox. All this gearbox has is forward, neutral, and reverse. It isn't like 4-speed gearbox or anything like that. I didn't want anything that complicated, but I'd always wanted to go-kart with a reverse. I did when I had the gearbox apart, drilled and tapped right here. So I put a grease fitting right there, so I didn't have to take it apart to add grease. These are the tires that came on the back. A friend of mine had another set identical to it. Mounted on the front. Sits up pretty high. I mean, you can go pretty much anywhere with this thing. This is one of the seat covers out of my old Thunderbird. The foam is actually from a old mattress out of a motorhome, and a piece of plywood I cut to fit back here. Just tacked it. Same thing on the bottom. This seat is adjustable. The adjustment came off an old Mark cart. Had in the same grocery store that I worked at. They replaced the seat, and it came with a new adjustment, so I kept the old one. The brakes that I'm using is just the standard brakes that's on the gearbox itself. The small disc that's on the side. It's plenty enough to stop this thing. When you let off the gas, it's geared so low, it pretty much stops then anyway. It's a 12.5 horse. See battery, solenoid, everything right there. This piece here that the gas tank is mounted on was a spare tire mount on an Econoline van that I got at the house, but it blocked the license plate, so we took it off. Yeah, that worked out perfect. I've got to cut this piece that's hanging down right here off, make it level, pretty much the way this side over here is. Yeah, it's just welded right down there at the bottom. The brake, I actually ran it through the frame of the seat here, because otherwise I was really going to have to bend it, and I'll have it down here and it was going to be rubbing really bad. It runs right back to here. I got a pillar bearing on either side. Instead of drilling into the frame and weakening it, I said to hell with it. I welded these pillar bearings down. This piece here It's held on there. Not sure what they're called. They got Allen screws to hold them on there. I made this piece here, welded it on there. So I mean, I can remove that. I just loosen up the Allen, take it off. But brake works pretty damn good. I mean, for an experimental, I had no idea if this thing was going to even work. I mean, it goes pretty fast too for a lawnmower gearbox. Really do need to get it cleaned up, get the wiring neatened up a little bit. I need to sand this down, get some paint on that so that won't rust. I put grease fittings on here, inside of there. I've got one go-kart at the house. It's a factory built go-kart that if you go more than a month without riding it, you get rust in here, and it's about impossible to turn this thing. So I plan for that. Grease fitting there, and grease fitting on this one down here at the bottom. The pedals, another thing with that factory when I got it at the house, they drilled through the frame. Guess where it broke within a month of having it? Frame broke right here. I mounted mine on top of the frame, and all this is some nuts that I drilled out where it fit tight. With no back and forth play on that, and welded them together, ran it through. It was sitting too far down, so just welded on a little piece of scrap that I had right there, and did the same thing with the brake. Over here, the front axle here is actually an old axle out of another go-kart. I didn't have any square hollow tubing like I really wanted to use. So this is solid 1-inch go-kart axle. It just didn't have keyway in it. So yeah, that's not going anywhere. And as you notice too, I would tell better from behind, the front end is much wider than the back. That's as wide as that rear end was. I knew if I didn't make the front end a little bit wider, this thing was going to be apt to flip over pretty easy. And we have stress tested it as much as possible, and it doesn't even attempt to flip over the way it is now. Put out here. I think for a first try, experimental go-kart turned out pretty damn good. Yes, my nephew's favorite color is light blue. The red I had to throw in there. Alright, I'll get the battery charged up. See if we can't get some videos of somebody riding it. Later.